Good afternoon from Camp Randall Stadium, where the Wisconsin football team has just wrapped up its spring inter-squad game. I'm Adam Mertz from madison.com Sports, joined by Tom Oates and Tom Mulhern of madison.com and the Wisconsin State Journal. Oates, we'll start with you. Give me your quick thought on today's spring game, which was a 29-27 score on the scoreboard, but really 3-0 on the official scoreboard.
Yeah, we had how many offensive plays from both sides and not a single touchdown scored. I think that pretty much sums up what happened here today. The offense just wasn't very good. There's a lot of injuries in the offensive line and at the various receiver spots. What stood out most probably was the ineffectiveness of the quarterback play.
Mully, on the flip side, defensively, what did you see out there? They went one-on-one today, which was unusual for a spring game. Did that impact things, and what did you see, especially that defensive line?
I saw a pretty good pass rush, and especially when you're going to one defense, there's always a good pass rush in this game, but it's usually because the starting defense is going against the backup offense. Today, with the ones against the ones, that was a pretty good pass rush, and they blitzed a little more than usual. We've seen a fair amount of blitzing this spring. We'll see if it carries over into the fall, but right now it's an aggressive attacking defense, and these players seem to like that.
It's with the new setup with Ash and Partridge co-coordinators on defense. Guys, we'll go trouble spots and bright spots. We'll start with bad news first. What's the thing that worries you the most as you come out of spring camp here, Oates?
The passing game, clearly. I don't think, as I said before, I think the quarterbacks were largely ineffective, and the receivers were largely ineffective. And I think part of that is due to injuries. Nick Toon didn't play. There's a couple of tight ends didn't play, and it didn't appear the quarterbacks and the receivers were on the same page, but maybe that's understandable. But clearly the passing game has a long way to go before the UNLV game.
Molly, what's tops on your mind in that department?
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. I'll go with the wide receivers a little bit more than the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks certainly did not look good today, but I don't think the wide receivers have helped them out much this entire spring. They need Toon desperately. They need Jacob Peterson at tight end, who was, pretty much when we saw Budmeyer in the spring, if he wasn't completing it to Jared Aberderis, there just wasn't much else out there. We saw more of the same today. Manessa Garner is one guy, as a sophomore, played a little defense last year, played a little tight end. He's a guy who could help them. They need another receiver to emerge, and obviously getting Toon back will help a lot.
What's the player or position group that's really jumped at you on the positive side this spring?
I'll go back to the defensive line. They're losing J.J. Watt. They're replacing a huge playmaker, and I think Brendan Kelly, a guy who's been hurt a lot the last 2 years, missed almost 2 full seasons with groin issues. He gives them a third effective starter right now behind Nzegwu and Gilbert. That's three pretty good ends, and they got depth at tackle. Right now they were without 2 defensive tackles today due to concussions and still had 4 guys they can play. So that's pretty good depth and big bodies, 280-plus pounders inside, which is a good thing. And, they got to start the defense from the inside out and stop the run first, to be able to do some of those other things. And I think at least they got the bodies. Now they got to find some playmakers.
And obviously Chris Borland out. Other than his late punt in this game, he'll be a big force at linebacker. Oates, what did you come out of positive in the springtime?
Well, I think you look at the 4 running backs they have, and all 4 of them I think can play and contribute in the fall. I think Monty Ball has lost weight, and he's faster and probably a better runner. You could see Zach Brown is running angry, and he wants to play. This is his last year, and he wants to play after sitting out last season. And Jeff Lewis has shown some speed. So, and I didn't even mention James White, who had 1,000 yards last year. So if you look at that, they're just loaded at running back. And I don't know that they stood out as much today in the spring game, but they've stood out all spring.
That'll do it for spring football this year. 4.5 months. Be back here early September for a Thursday night season opening game. Thanks for joining us today.